Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic. I'm your co-host Julia.
Howdy, I'm Barry Worth, the film critic, here to talk to you about Tombstone from director George P. Cosmatos from 1993.
That's right. We're talking about Tombstone, a cowboy movie, a western with so many movie stars in it. I'm not going to remember them all at all.
More movie stars than there are stars in the sky. Yeah, I like this one a lot, and you had never seen it before, so I was eager to revisit it with you. I have a lot of kind of offhand history with this film. I'll say really quickly, since I was going to say it at some point, it was really strange, very serendipitous how it happened. So this film opened on Christmas of 1993, and it opened up against Mrs. Doubtfire and what else? It was and The Nightmare Before Christmas. So this movie didn't seem like it was going to, have a fight in that battle, at the box office. And they didn't screen it early for critics, so the word on the street was that this thing was a dog. And coincidentally, my Uncle Marty, who was still alive at the time, my dear late Uncle Marty, he took my brother and I, and my father as well, to this place in Tucson, Arizona called Old Tucson Studios. And it was this mock Western town where they filmed dozens and dozens of Westerns. And we're walking around this area, we're taking pictures and hanging out. And at the time, we were like, this is kind of one of the lamest places we've ever gone in our lives. It just seemed like so quaint and dusty. Well, two things. One thing, it burned down not long after we were there. And the other thing is that we went and saw Tombstone a week later. I'm like, oh my God, like we stood there. Like so much of Tombstone was shot at Old Tucson Studios. And this movie, when it came out, it was one of these things where it did open on Christmas, and it didn't really open that well. And, I mean, it looked like it was going to bomb because of its opening weekend. But the following weekend, the box office was almost double. And it hung in there, and it wound up being a sleeper hit. And I guess to jump to it, I mean, one of the reasons people didn't think it was going to do well is because everyone knew that there were two competing Wyatt Earp movies coming out at the same time. The other one was called Wyatt Earp, which came out 6 months later, summer of 1994. Real prestige movie. Lawrence Kasdan did it. It was Kevin Costner as Wyatt Earp and Dennis Quaid as Doc Holliday. 3 hours long, epic movie. And that movie died. Total bomb. Not a bad film, but it just didn't connect. And Tombstone, on the other hand, beat it by 6 months. And it's still considered one of the greatest, if not one of the top 10 greatest Westerns of the last, 30, 40, 50 years.
I don't think you can beat Kurt Russell, honestly, and Val Kilmer.
It's not that Wyatt Earp is. It's a very different film. For one thing, it's sprawling, it's long, it's a lot of the stuff that we talked about. Like it fills in all the gaps. You understand who he is when we meet him. Unlike this movie where Wyatt Earp begins, and we're kind of trying to figure like who is this guy exactly? What's his deal? Where has he been? How does he know Doc Holliday? In the movie Wyatt Earp, all of that is explained. Costner he's playing Wyatt Earp from the age of, I think, 17 and on. And at times he's wearing like a long wig and you can't quite. Oh,
wow.
Yeah, so it doesn't quite work when he's playing him.
Does he have all the wives in that movie?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The courtship there. I mean, it's a long movie. And I got to say, like, Dennis Quaid, excellent as Doc Holliday. It's a very different performance than what Kilmer does, and we'll talk about Kilmer momentarily. Anyway, the film is worth seeing. It is, but I gotta say, like, Tombstone, even though it's the smaller movie, it's better. It really is.
Yeah. Even though I started off thinking, I don't really know who any of these characters are. I just did not remember. I'm sorry, I don't know my Western history.
You don't know about Wyatt Earp and Jesse James and Calamity Jane.
No. I mean,
Shufflin' Joe and Two-Timing Tommy.
I just have to go back and, brush up on all that stuff. But,
Well, what I was telling you too, and this is always something to consider with Westerns. Westerns, it's a very much an American mythology. So even if you see a Western that claims to be based on a true story, it never is. Because these stories are so aggrandized. I mean, you remember when we went to Albuquerque, I'm a huge Billy the Kid fan. Big Billy the Kid fan. So going to the Billy the Kid Museum, both of them, and going to where he rode and, getting to see where he was buried, big deal for me. But I got to say, like, the more I read all these books, like these really hardcore books that were really, just so thorough and real, I realized a lot of my favorite Billy the Kid stories are completely made up. Really, because one thing, it's not that it's it's that whole adage of if you got to choose between truth or the legend, print the legend. That's in so many of these cases, that's what they've done. There's so much about the Wild West that is both gritty and tough, but also very romanticized, and there's a little of both of that in this film.
Well, we meet Wyatt Earp and they're like, "Oh, he was a lawman back in Kansas and all these things." Well, you read about him. I read a little bit after the movie, and it was like, okay, he kind of like ran a brothel. He was like, I don't know. They really make him larger than life on
And they
the
make him
big
sound very
screen.
heroic, right?
Yeah,
Because in real life, it's not that he didn't do great things. He did. He's
right.
fascinating. But no, I agree
But
with
it
you.
was just a lot of gambling, a lot of, kind of some shady things happening. It's not like he was just this pristine, law-abiding citizen.
Yeah, at no point in Tombstone does someone ask Wyatt, what were we doing 20 years ago? I was running a prostitution ring. No, not at all. It's like, he was a man of the law.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, this movie opens up with kind of an old-timey black and white, opening.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Fascinating. It's narrated by Robert Mitchum. They couldn't pick a better voice for this, let alone a better actor. And what really jumped out at me is initially they're showing, I guess, maybe cut scenes from this movie, just little snippets of scenes of Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer in character as Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, setting the scene of the setting, the story of cowboy outlaws versus men of law, et cetera, et cetera. And after a couple of these scenes that were clearly made for the movie, it's all black and white. It's all done in this, in the boxy ratio. You have clips from The Great Train Robbery, which is a real movie that came out in 1903. So I thought that's interesting. That's a cool choice. For one thing, it's inaccurate because this movie takes place in the 1880s. Great Train Robbery, 1903. Great Train Robbery is the first it's the first fully narrative film. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's silent, but it's a Western. By the way, it's a Western by Edwin S. Porter. It's the only Western that I know of that was made entirely in New Jersey. But it's famous because the last image of the film has an outlaw firing the camera directly. He's firing his guns directly at the camera. He fires I think 4 or 5 shots. And at the time, people freaked out because they didn't know how movies worked. So people would see it in the theater. They would pass out. They'd flee the theater. Some people fired back at the screen. You actually see that shot in this movie.
Okay, after seeing this movie, I'm not surprised people pulled out their guns and shot at the screen.
Well, let's face it. In this world, people would see a mosquito and be like, I'm going to get that mosquito. Because that's the kind of world we're talking about. We'll get more into that. But anyway, I was fascinated that oh man, this movie's right away. They're playing up the idea of legend versus reality because Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday were real people. But at the same time, by showing us clips of the Great Train Robbery, it's like, okay, thank you, movie. You're tipping the hat that there is a sense of mythos and legend to these stories. So as much as you want to say this is what really happened, no,
it's not. No. All right, so we then open up with at a Mexican wedding, and the cowboys ride in, and it's
Curly Bill.
It's so sad. They just shoot up this entire wedding and kill everybody. I think except for the bride.
It's quite it's a great way to introduce our villains because they're on, it's like a 6-minute long scene. We immediately hate these guys so much.
My gosh.
There's no they're not that, no, they're terrible. They are absolutely the worst of them is the head, Curly Bill, played by Powers Booth. I love this actor so much. But he has one of those smiles that he almost never gets cast as the hero. He's almost always cast as the villain because he looks like trouble. And he's perfect. And of course, playing his right-hand man is Michael Biehn as Johnny Ringo. And he's fantastic in this movie, so good. And you have a lot of, Stephen Lang is a part of this gang. So yeah, it's an interesting cluster of character actors. But they're like the gang in RoboCop. You just hate their guts so much. A detail that jumped out at me, and I don't know if I should even say this. It might be neither here nor there, but it's a brutal scene where, this couple that just got married, they're just walking out of the chapel. The groom is humiliated and murdered in front of his bride. And then there's a moment where she's screaming and a couple men are taking her away off camera. And the implications of that are horrifying.
I noticed that.
But then you hear the gunshot. And I thought, did they add that later? Trying to kind of soften the scene?
Yeah, they're like, is it better if we murder her or rape her in this movie?
I wondered about it because it almost felt like maybe they just added that an ADR later because they're like, I don't know if audiences can deal with this, after 5 minutes of movie.
Right.
Anyway, forgive me. I know that's an insensitive topic, but it did make me wonder. Like maybe that was a choice where like the preview audience is like they're like we're out of here.
Yeah.
This is too much after 5 minutes.
I was just like, dang, okay, here we go.
It's a rough opening, but I think it absolutely works because we get the sense of the dynamic and these characters are foul. It really establishes right away, like, okay, cowboys, good guys, bad guys. This is a Western.
Yeah, so the cowboys are basically the gangs of this time. Of the 1880s.
They all wear red sashes, so they know who they are. Yeah.
Red sashes, and they just go around in these little small towns and they're just shooting things
Rape,
up.
murder, pillage. Yeah, they're awful.
Yeah, like pirates, you said.
Like pirates,
all
absolutely.
Right. Okay, so now we meet Kurt Russell, who plays Wyatt Earp, and he does not want to be a marshal anymore. He has left Kansas. They are now in Tombstone in Arizona.
Well, let me dote on one little moment, though. When he gets off the train, there's this moment where he sees this guy abusing his horse. And so Wyatt Earp steps in, immediately slaps the guy with the horse's reins.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is a great detail because, on the one hand, the movie does not hesitate to make him, absolutely, this is the hero of all heroes. But he's sadistic. And we see that throughout the movie. He's got this nasty streak to him. He's very quick-tempered. And I like that moment because without that, it really is. I mean, we all love Kurt Russell. I think if Kurt Russell ever ran for president, I think like we'd be like, oh, I think I'm just gonna vote for him because I love Kurt Russell. I think everybody could get on board with that. All that to say, Kurt Russell. I mean, we've talked about this. He used to be an actor for Disney. He's been around for so long. He's done so much work, and he's so varied and brilliant. He's so eminently likable, not to mention familiar. So I like whether it's a movie like this or like a John Carpenter film where there's details where the character he's playing is less than perfect. That's very helpful because, my favorite thing that he's probably done ever is Stuntman Mike in Death Proof.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was so wrong for that role, but that's what made him so good because you would never expect him. Anyway, he's a very underrated actor.
Do Death Proof.
Ooh. Yeah, now you're talking. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good
future
one.
episode. Oh.
Okay.
So anyway, so love that moment.
Okay, so Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp, gets off the train in Tombstone. His two brothers join him.
Yes.
Played by
the great Sam Elliott, who, with his mustache, is appropriate for any and every Western, although apparently not one directed by Jane Campion.
And the other brother.
And, of course, the late, great Bill Paxton.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah, we lost him.
That's sad.
Isn't that sad? Yeah.
Okay, so along with their wives, the six of them are starting a new life together.
Very interesting bunch. And as we meet Julian Nicholson playing Maddie Earp, Wyatt's wife, it's established. This is a very good actress. I like her. She was in Fletch. She's done a lot of really good stuff. But she has one note to play in this. She's addicted to drugs. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. This poor actress. That's the only note
All
she has to play.
All she wants is laudanum.
Lots of opium. Lots and lots of opium. And that's it.
She says she has headaches, but she just doesn't have a lot to do here.
Yeah, it's I know this movie wants to be as accurate as it can be, but it really would have benefited from just cutting this character.
Yeah.
Because it just, I don't think it really, we'll get into it. I don't know that it gives, I don't know that movie, part of that movie needs to be nourished.
Right.
Wyatt Earp's love life.
Well, okay. I think we do need to. He was married 4 times.
Well, the reason why I'm sure Disney's, because this is a Disney film, by the way. I'm sure they're like, you know what? We need to get the female demographic. It's a bunch of dudes shooting each other for almost 3 hours. We need to have a love story here. We need to have some kind of date movie appeal, because otherwise, this is really like,
Yeah. Okay. Well, there is like a moment where the 6 of them are like looking at their, image inside this window, and it's just kind of like, here we are, like we've made it. And we're going to start a new life together.
Yeah, and it's not long after that opening scene, so it is this whole sense of like, it's almost like a reflection of cinema. It's this sense of like, myth making. Let's look at this. Just stand here. Just no need. There's no photography doesn't exist at this point, so let's let's just look at this picture of each other, this reflection, and sometime we'll come back and we'll look at it again because that's how it works.
Okay, then we meet Doc Holliday.
Played by Val Kilmer in one of the most astonishing performances he's ever given. Kilmer, 2 years earlier, he played Jim Morrison in one of my favorite Oliver Stone movies, The Doors, and he's extraordinary in that. The same year he did this, he played Elvis in True Romance. What makes Kilmer so amazing is that even though the movies he picked weren't always perfect, there's no role that he can't play. And this is proof positive that you would never think to cast Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. That's a stupid, insane idea. But from the first moment he's on screen, scene to scene, line for line, he is incredible in this movie. I love this performance.
And he's sick the entire time.
Well, yeah. I don't think they even say the word tuberculosis. That's definitely, they should have made a little clear.
They just call him a lunger. It's so rude.
It's so mean. And you made a good point of this because you're not familiar with Doc Holliday. And, again, I don't think the word tuberculosis is ever uttered in this movie. So I think after like 5 minutes of his scene, you're going, is he sick? I'm like, Jules, that's an excellent question. This movie should have told us why it looks like he's being sprayed with water before every take.
He's just like, his makeup is gray. He's like, his eyes are red. He's constantly wet.
He looks gruesome. And, it's worth noting. Not only is Kilmer extraordinary as an actor, but he's really good looking. You would never guess that from this performance. He is just gone, vanished into this role. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so who's his gal pal?
Big Nose Kate in real life. She was a Hungarian prostitute.
Her name is Big Nose Kate?
Yeah, they make more of it in the other Wyatt Earp film when the role is played by Isabella Rossellini. Yeah.
Oh. She doesn't even have a big nose.
No, and I've seen a picture in real life, not a big nose. So I don't know why they called her Big Nose Kate.
You know what? That's so rude. Big Nose Kate and Lunger, jeez.
Well, this is a very PC, very sensitive time, People were very careful about what they say to each other, or they weren't, and they would get shot.
Yeah, exactly.
You call my wife a Big Nose Kate.
Okay, so we meet them playing a poker game.
Yeah.
And he just...
He cleans
house. But he also steals.
Yeah, and this is great. He's something of an anti-hero because he's not quite legitimate, and they're basically robbing the place.
Right. Yeah.
And clearly this is something they've done a lot of times before. Yeah.
All right, so back to Wyatt Earp's crew. So they're in Tombstone, and they're kind of they ride into town, and like they just meet like the chief of police right away. Yeah. The U.S. Marshals, and Wyatt Earp is known. Like once he tells them his name, everyone's like,
either they're impressed or they run.
Right. But they're usually like, hey, so you want to join and Wyatt Earp is always like, no, get away from me.
Yeah, he's immediately introduced by Sheriff Behan, played by John Tenney. A detail I love about this character, I thought that's honest. Behan explains all the things that he's done and accomplished. He's like, I'm also part of the Anti-Chinese League. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, movie. An ugly detail, but, historically accurate.
Yeah, they're like, that's...
And I'm proudly racist, so I hope you are too, Mr. Earp.
Oh, my gosh. So they kind of give him a little tour of town, and they say, like, oh, there's this place called the Oriental.
Yeah.
And...
more of that.
Yeah. And nobody really goes in there. It's kind of this dead bar with a poker game going on. And so what does Wyatt Earp do? He heads on over there to talk to the owner. And he finds out that the guy running the game is, just a loser?
He's belligerent. He's a bully.
And nobody wants to play?
Nobody wants to play. People are afraid of him. And if they go in there, they tend to get beaten up or worse. And he's played by a very young, at this point unknown, Billy Bob Thornton. This was 3 years prior to his big breakout with Sling Blade. So this is back when he was doing sitcoms and little roles.
So was he wearing like facial prosthetics?
No, he's a big dude.
Really?
Yeah, at this point, he was a big dude.
Oh, wow.
He was on was it called Hearts of Fire? I'm kind of embarrassed if I actually know that. He was on a sitcom, I'm serious, with John Ritter, and he was kind of a hefty dude at that point. But yeah, he became gaunt and muscular. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe just as he got older,
he started dating Angelina Jolie. He's like, I gotta do some sit-ups.
I gotta go on a diet.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so he was just bigger.
He's a bigger dude
earlier on.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I just didn't know. That's why I didn't recognize him. I recognized his voice, and then I saw his face, and I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's him.
So Wyatt Earp, he goes in there and just tells this dude, I'm taking over.
Yeah, this is, I gotta say, like, the screenplay by Kevin Jarre, it's full of this tough guy dialogue, and it's pretty wonderful. And this is a great scene. It is. Yeah, Russell initially it's very just chatty and almost sort of just informative, and it becomes very quickly like, I'm going to destroy you if you don't get out of here right now. And he proceeds to humiliate Billy Bob Thornton's character.
Something on your mind?
Just want to let you know you're sitting in my chair.
Is that a fact?
Yeah, it's a fact.
Well, for a man that don't go heeled, you run your mouth kind of reckless, don't you?
No need to go heel to get the bulge on a tub like you.
Is that a fact?
That's a fact.
Well, I'm real scared.
Damn right you're scared. I can see that in your eyes.
All right,
Now, go ahead. Go ahead, skin it. Skin that smoke wagon and see what happens.
listen, mister, I'm getting awful tired of your...
I'm getting tired of your gas. Now jerk that pistol and go to work. I said throw down, boy.
Oh.
You gonna do something or just stand there and bleed?
It's a fabulous scene. I love this scene.
Yeah, and the thing that that is established is just with one look, people know that Wyatt Earp is serious.
Yes.
That he's not bluffing ever.
Well, it's Kurt Russell, man. Those beautiful blues looking at you, man.
Those beautiful blues with the major eyeliner that they put on him. Okay, I just
You could not stop talking about this.
Okay, he is wearing so much makeup. It is like, okay, first of all, pancaked on his skin. And then the dark eyeliner, it's just why? Why this choice?
I don't think it's as extreme as you're saying. He doesn't. It's not like Robert Smith from The Cure, for Pete's sake. He just has some.
No, it's pretty extreme. The only time we actually see his skin is one time when it's raining. The rest of this movie is just like major tan cake makeup.
He's a cowboy. He's out on the range. He's in a wagon on a horse. There's no sunblock.
I know, but it's just
He's been
It
traveling.
was just obvious. It's obvious that there's a lot of makeup on him.
All right. I mean,
That's
because a lot
what
of
I'm
these
saying.
actors look like they're sunbeaten. I think that's the idea. The only
He's the only
one who
one-
looks like he needs some sun is Val Kilmer.
I just feel like the makeup people on this movie they could have made their choices less obvious.
Okay, fair
That's
enough. All right.
Okay. So once the Billy Bob Thornton character leaves, Wyatt Earp tells the
Sheriff,
manager,
yeah.
he's like, 25% of the take, I'm going to run this table. And he tells his brothers like, well, we're all right. We're ready to go. We're good. But then Billy Bob Thornton comes back with his shotgun and thinks he's going to take out Wyatt Earp, and then Doc Holliday steps in, and then now their full posse is together. So
Yes, it's a great moment where the Earps and Doc Holliday are like talking and chatting and catching up, and they're just ignoring Billy Bob Thornton standing there with a shotgun. And Holliday has a line where he's like, "Oh, you're still there." It's great.
yeah, they're like, no, you can leave the shotgun. Like you just leave it here. No, just put it on the ground. And the guy, he listens to him, and he's just like, okay, I guess I'm done with these people.
Yeah, nice work from Billy Bob Thornton. He exits the movie. I would have loved more of this character, but yeah.
So one thing that is very obvious about this time period that I told you, I don't think I would enjoy this, is just people getting shot in the street any time of the day or night.
Oh yeah, no, I mean this is the Wild West. Everybody's packing heat. Many other westerns have dealt with this too. This idea that if you cheat someone at cards, that's one thing. I mean, this is like you give someone a wrong look, a wrong word. Hey, how you doing there, pal? It's too early for questions. Like anything. How you doing there? Is that a Pomeranian? It's a Shih Tzu. Like, doesn't take much for these guys to like reach for their guns and just take them. Yeah, it's and you know, and sometimes I wonder too, like, is this another thing about it? Is this another thing about the Wild West that's overblown? No, like this was you know, this aspect that people died over the stupidest stuff. They shot each other over the dumbest stuff in the streets. And places like saloons and like bad parts of town, you could definitely see a fist fight, or, you know, because there's this sense of lawlessness, especially these towns that are out in the middle of nowhere. And if the sheriff isn't around, you could get away with all kinds of stuff.
And the thing about these sheriffs and these quote unquote lawmen is the way they handle everything is really ridiculous.
Yeah.
So one guy gets shot. And I mean, he's just laying there dead in the street. Nobody goes to check on him. Nobody's like, oh, maybe we should call a doctor. The sheriff just goes up to the guy and he's like, all right, give me your gun. And he's like, I got to take it to the judge and, you know, we'll get back to you. It's just like, what?
Yeah, and you wonder, like, what is his caseload like? It's like, okay, like she caught her husband cheating. She shot him in the crotch. It was like a slow Tuesday. Like, what is it like to be the sheriff of Tombstone? Yeah.
Okay, so next we have a moment.
Theater troupe.
The theater, yeah. And who comes to town?
Well, enter Billy Zane as the actor extraordinaire, and playing the female lead in these big productions is Dana Delaney.
Now, are they together?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, they're just traveling together.
I think she's there for the sheriff. She digs the sheriff initially.
Okay.
She has a thing with the sheriff, I think.
Because doesn't somebody say like, oh, aren't you with the actor?
Yeah, but I think it's, we'll talk more about this. I think a thing that probably got lost on the cutting room floor is not only more of this, but more of Billy Zane and his connection to the character played by Jason Priestley.
Because it's obvious that Billy Zane's character is gay.
You think?
I think
well, I think it's blatant that Jason Priestley is playing his character that way. I don't know about Zane. I mean, Zane is...
I think Dana Delaney's character is there to make Billy Zane's character look not gay,
which would make a lot of sense for this setting.
For this time period.
Yeah, no.
I think he's like, hey, you keep me.
Yeah, if she's like, I got your back.
Right.
That makes sense.
Because he doesn't want anybody to like come and shoot him.
Well, this is the era where people shot each other over stupid things like that. Yeah. No, the Jason Priestley character, and I'll just say, like, I think this is probably a 3 or 4 hour movie that probably got cut down to 2 hours 10 minutes. There's a lot of characters that come into focus and they're gone, sometimes permanently. Jason Priestley was prominently billed in this movie, and this was like not long after 90210, so it was a big deal that he was in this. He was one of the people I was really excited about seeing. He is quasi unrecognizable. I think he's very good in this character role, but the character is interesting enough, especially in contrast to what an effeminate gay man living in Tombstone during this era, what it would be like for him. I wanted more of that.
Okay.
I really wanted more of that. But I think... But I agree with you. I think there's enough there to indicate that there's something up with him and Billy Zane, especially, not to jump ahead, but their final moment together, I think, is especially indicating that.
But Billy Zane, they come into town and put on a show.
Yeah.
And
it's Henry V and Faust, which this town does not seem to be up for Shakespeare and Faust. But, okay.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
So everybody's in this theater, crowded, and there's like an opening act, and the cowboys are watching theater, and they don't like what's happening, so they pull out their guns and just
It's
start
great.
shooting.
It's like as if everyone in the theater was Yosemite Sam, just firing at the actors. It's insane.
It is so insane.
And these poor actors, like, the show must go on.
I know, right? And this is when Wyatt Earp sees her.
Dana Delaney, yeah, she's playing. I think she's actually playing Faust, and it's funny. I mean, Faust for this town. I mean, are those cowboys like? There's some foreshadowing going on. At that time, I sold my soul to the devil. This is a good show. This is some good theater right here. But yeah, he's watching Dana Delaney play the character. She takes the mask off. It's a nice reveal, and she's got a lovely head of hair. And Wyatt Earp's like, yeah, and his poor wife is sitting next to him like, more opium? I mean, yay! So you establish that there's going to be something of a love triangle, which the movie plays very loosely with.
Well, the only thing his wife does is
opium.
Catch him looking at her, the
Yeah.
other woman, and walking away. This happens multiple times.
It does, yeah. It's like if they had any scenes, any dialogue between one another, they got tossed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, she does drugs and she catches her husband checking out this other chick.
Yeah,
that's all. That's all she does.
has. Yeah, yeah.
All right. So,
Can I say something about Dana Delaney?
yes,
Too contemporary.
yes, agreed.
I never bought it for a second. I like her. She's been very good. She was on a show called China Beach, and she's fantastic in that. I've seen her in other things I liked a lot.
You
But
think her look is contemporary, or
No,
just her
her
character?
performance.
Oh yeah, her performance.
Yeah, I never believed that she was like of this time. The other actors, I mean, Sam Elliott. I mean, the guy looks like. I mean, if anything, he doesn't look like he should exist now. He looks like he should be in 1880. But yeah, Dana Delaney. No, I mean, it's like she reeks of 1993.
Oh yeah.
Jason Priestley vanishes. I mean, that's pretty cool. Jason Priestley never, he doesn't look like, a hot teen actor of the 90s in a character role. I mean, he looks fantastic. I believed him in this character, even though as small as it is. But yeah, Delaney, no, never.
Yeah. Well, so after this performance, everybody's in the bar, and Doc he sees Wyatt checking out
Oh, it's great.
Josephine.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what are you going to do about this? And he's like, nothing. And so he kind of is like, we'll see about that. And then the next day, Wyatt is on a horseback ride.
Oh, are you gonna skip the whole thing with Johnny Ringo and the dueling pistols and all that?
Oh, yeah, you can talk about that.
I mean, so we're jumping to the meaty part, but no, it's a cool moment where the bad guys basically enter the film and they're literally sitting across from Wyatt Earp and the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday and
at the poker game.
At the poker game, and Michael Bain has this moment where he really tries to show up Doc Holliday, and Bain apparently mastered gun twirling. It's awesome. He totally rocks it. And then, and Doc Holliday with a cup belittles him, which is great. It's a fantastic
Yeah, he
bit.
does the same thing with a cup.
With a tin cup. Yeah. So yeah, it's just, I think, really great setup, but really, you get the tension, but there's also a bit of humor there. These actors are just killing it in these roles, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's cool to see them all. This is like one of the more, how would you put
lighthearted
it? Sure.
touches.
Yeah. Compared to the scenes that are coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So your point. So the next day, Earp is just galloping around.
Yeah, galloping around with his horse, and then you see him see her, and he goes, "Oh no!" And so, they run into each other, and he says, "Oh, your horse is basically in heat," and she's like, "How do you know?" And he's like, well, the smell, like my horse can smell your horse, and he's like, we should probably separate them. And she's like, let's make him run it out, so it's like this weird, like the horses have sexual tension, so now it's like a mirror to like their sexual tension. It's kind of a weird choice.
This is a scene I wish was not in the movie. I hate this scene so much. It's such a waste of time.
Them galloping around.
Oh my gosh,
and then,
waste of
and then
time.
they have like a fake picnic.
Where did this food come
Yeah.
from?
Well, I don't know if they have food, but there's like a blanket and they're sitting under a tree, and I'm just like, this was really just random.
It's very awkward, and then she asks about his wife, and then the part that you've been mentioning. Yeah.
So she's like, "What do you want out of life?" And he's like, "What kind of questions are these? Like, nobody asks questions like this." And he's like, "I don't know. I would like to be married and have kids." And she kind of like laughs it off, like, "Oh my gosh, like that's so stupid. Like, who wants a wife and kids and a family and a house and all that stuff?" And he's like, "Well, what do you want?" And she's like, "Room service." I'm like, really? I mean, okay, I get that they want to portray Josephine as this modern, it's like Shannon from
Far and Away.
Far and Away, like, I'm modern and I'm going to prove it,
Yeah, she's an empowered woman, and that's awesome, but for me, it's the actress. I think there's a way to do a scene like this where the character rather doesn't come across as a total snob
and too smug.
It's very off-putting to a point where I'm thinking, oh, he could do better than her. Yeah, I'm not rooting for this courtship.
Like I don't really quite.
I'm rooting for Billy Zane and Jason Priestley, but I'm not rooting for Dana Delaney and Kurt Russell.
But I mean, to your point, like don't understand. Like they don't really have any chemistry.
This is maybe the meanest thing I'll ever say about Dana Delaney, because seriously, I like her. But when this character is introduced and after this awful scene, all I was thinking was, oh, you know what? I'll bet she gets shot. And that'll be like the thing that'll make him all angry. Like, I could see why this character is here. And I was very disappointed that this does not transpire.
Wow.
Yeah.
You wanted her to get shot?
I wanted her to get shot because one thing I didn't like the
Dang.
character, and B, I'm like, okay, that'll be the thing like that pushes him over the edge.
Like his revenge, his reason to like go after these guys.
You never got that room service. I'll get it for you, honey. I'll get it. You'll get room service.
Well, and it's like, okay, that's the thing that he goes home and just keeps thinking about, because he goes home to his wife.
She's like, opium? Oh, hi, Wyatt.
Yeah, she's totally high on drugs. And then she's
Because
like,
that's
well,
all this poor actress has to
so
play.
what were you doing today? He's like, oh, I was just out for a ride. And then he's like, what if we just like leave this place and we just like go to the big city and, I don't know, get room service?
He uses the term, and she's like, that's ridiculous, you know. And it's the idea that Wyatt's like, oh, well, my wife isn't not modern. She doesn't want no room service like the actors all them room service.
It's kind of a strange, like, I wish they had picked something else to show that this woman, Josephine, was just more unconventional.
Yes, or maybe just eliminating this part of the film, which does nothing for the movie. Even the fact that he's just aimlessly riding around on his horse is so dumb that he's just like,
What are they supposed to do for fun? He needed.
He's got the Oriental. He's got that club. He can play cards.
He doesn't want to be at work all the time.
That's work. He gets to punch people in the mouth and play, rummy. That's great.
Well, he wants to ride in the.
His best friend's got tuberculosis.
wide
What else could you
open.
ask for?
Oh, you mean his lunger friend?
You just call my friend a lunger.
Oh my god!
I hope that sounds like gunshots when we listen back to this episode. That's supposed to be a gunshot, by the way. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna listen back to this like, oh, that doesn't sound like a gunshot at all. How embarrassing.
How embarrassing.
Our listeners are so confused.
Okay, so then I'm gonna jump to.
Please jump ahead because I'm looking at my notes. I'm
Curly-
already writing about the gunfight at OK Corral, so you go
Yes.
ahead.
Curly Bill is just like wandering through the,
This is where he ties a kite, right?
Yeah,
and it's weird because that scene opens up where he's apparently in an opium den. And it's like the one Asian actor in this entire movie just standing to the side like a Fu Manchu kind of character. And I'm like, is this a part of Tombstone that has not been established? I mean, not to make a point of it, because, I mean, obviously you wouldn't use a term like the Oriental anymore, but like, is this the top floor of the Oriental where there's actually an opium den? I don't know.
We don't know.
But it's weird because it's like this creepy, sleazy part of Tombstone that's never referenced otherwise. And yeah, Curly Bill is like tripping big time. And then he stumbles outside and starts shooting anything and everybody.
He just starts shooting everything, not just people, but the buildings,
windows.
Everything.
Yeah, he's just trigger happy. It's very cool and establishes the danger of the character. But again, I'm going like, where did the party start for this guy?
Well, there's a lot of unanswered questions.
Like,
but...
what is the Studio 54 of Tombstone? That's where he just came from. Does Wyatt Earp not know about this place?
It's a secret. No,
I guess so. Like, man, Tombstone's an interesting place.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Studio 54. This is Studio 45. Remember, this is 1880.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the marshal, they're like, you got to go out there and stop him. I mean, he's going to keep like.
And this poor marshal who, I don't know, what is he, 75 years old?
Yeah. And he does not want to go out there. He's just like, oh, that's my job.
Put your gun down. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, going out there that could be a death sentence, and it is. Mm-hmm. So he goes out and Curly Bill, Curly Sue, no, Curly Bill shoots him. And then, oh man, now all the townspeople are riled up.
It's a great scene because, Wyatt Earp runs the scene because one of the most likable characters in the movie has just been shot.
Right.
So Earp comes and just takes his gun and smacks Curly Bill across the face, knocks him out, and is about to arrest him when the rest of his gang starts to slowly ascend on them.
Well, And just the rest of the townspeople. They're
Yeah.
like, you need to give us him. We're going to string him up. We're going to take matters into our own hands. And Wyatt Earp is like, no, he needs to go. Like, there needs to be a trial. We need to do this the right, proper way, And another guy comes up to him, and Wyatt Earp just puts his gun to his forehead and like looks him straight in the eye. And
He's got that Russell look.
He says, I will turn your head into a canoe.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that is a very visceral image. And I can see why this guy is totally freaked out.
It's great. Yeah, I think is that Thomas Hayden Church at this point?
I don't remember.
I think it's the actor. Yeah.
But he's like, I am not kidding. And he goes, you guys, he's not kidding. He will kill me. So please, and someone... It's just a very tension-filled scene because you're
great,
like, oh, is a canoe coming? Like, what's going to happen?
He's giving me the death stare. He's got eyeshadow on. This guy is dangerous.
So everyone knows by the look in his eyes that
you don't mess with Wyatt Earp.
You don't mess with Wyatt Earp.
Yep.
That's right. So then the next day you find out Curly Bill just like gets off. Right. Because there wasn't more than one witness to the shooting. And I'm just like, really? Everyone saw him crazy high shooting up downtown, and that's not enough. They don't have enough proof to convict this guy.
This is before like DNA evidence and surveillance cameras and fingerprinting. I mean, this is not really this is like a hearsay kind of thing.
Right. Well, then that is what now gets us into, I think, the second act where you see one of the Earp brothers like posting up this new law.
Yeah.
And the new law is you cannot be packing heat in town. And everyone goes berserk.
Yeah.
They're just like, what? What? You can't say that. You can't do that.
You can't take away our guns.
Yeah. And so the other two Earp brothers are lawmen now.
Yep.
And Wyatt is pissed.
Yes.
Yeah. Because he's like, you know what? I left this life. Like, you guys don't know what it's like to do this job. And, we find out later he had to kill somebody, and it was like probably his PTSD from that, even though they don't know what that is back then. But he was ready. He wants to live his life as a gambling man now. He doesn't want to keep law and order.
Yeah.
So a lot of itchy triggers. Lots
in this movie.
So, all right. Anything you want to add?
No. I mean, the film gets to the gunfight at OK Corral pretty quickly, and it's interesting to me because, I mean, for one thing, there's a movie called The Gunfight at OK Corral with Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas. I like this movie. I grew up on it. A guy who's in it, Lyle Bettinger, a character actor, he went to a church I went to. I like Lyle a lot. He's no longer with us. But that movie is The Gunfight at the OK Corral. The movie's roughly 70, 80 minutes long. And this film is much more accurate about it. What we know about the gunfight at OK Corral, it was over in a matter of minutes.
It was like 3 people that were shot.
Yeah, and many have said that it didn't even take place in OK Corral. It was actually down the street from it, but it actually sounded better to call it the gunfight at OK Corral. So again, it's this myth-making. But anyway, this film, for me, I remember at the time seeing it, it really jumped out at me. I thought, like, this is probably a lot closer to what really happened, although it's still done with such showmanship. It's a very exciting scene. So well done, so well paced.
This is when the Earp brothers go to disarm the cowboys. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah. And it has this great visual. It became the poster of the movie. It's also the end credits of the movie where they're walking towards the camera, the 4 of them, and they're walking past this burning house. And as they enter center frame, the burning house is right behind them. So it's like, oh man, like, the flames of hell, the sense of, justice is coming. It's exciting. It's great. It's a great visual. This is not a stylish film at all, really. It's the filmmaking is very, very straightforward. There's like one crane shot. There's a couple of slow-mo shots, but it's really not a director's film, really. Even for a Western, it's a very straightforward horse opera, if you will. And I love the build-up to. I mean, you could just sense this is it. This is the big moment, and all the town folk are watching and.
Yeah. There's a bloodbath here.
We're going to watch some killing. Yeah.
So, okay, I should say that more than 3 people die in this bloodbath, but in the Wikipedia about the OK Corral, it says only 3 people died.
That's probably, as much as I hate to give Wikipedia any credit at all. Yeah, I think that's about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, the movie takes the legend a little bit further. But this is where you hear Doc say, "I'm your huckleberry."
Oh, for the first time. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's thrilling stuff.
And like, what does it mean?
I don't know.
We don't know?
I don't really know. No, I've never known.
I mean, okay, is this something Doc Holliday actually said? Or is
Probably
this something
not.
that
Probably
Val
not.
Kilmer and the screenwriters just came up with?
I have no idea, to tell you the truth. I don't know what that means. I didn't look it up. I've never known. I mean, for
Is
a
that
while I
from
wondered.
Huckleberry Finn?
Yeah, I wondered, is it a Mark Twain reference? I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Like I'm your friend. I'm here for you.
Well, no, because considering who he's saying it to, I think it's more like I'm up to it.
Oh, okay.
I'll take you on.
I'll take you
I'm
on.
up to your
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. Okay. If anybody knows, send your hate mail too.
No. I mean, I feel embarrassed that I don't know this, but I've never known it, and it's just one of those lines. I mean, it's like, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. Like, why does Robert Duvall say that in Apocalypse Now? I don't care. It's one of the coolest lines in cinema. I don't care. This could be the start of a beautiful friendship at the end of Casablanca. Why does he say that? Who cares? It's a perfect line.
Who cares? Okay. So after this bloodbath, the Earps and Doc Holliday, they leave, and I think they're kind of like, our work here is done, you know? And then there is an insane thunder and lightning storm.
I love this.
This thunder and lightning storm is so out of control. I've never seen anything like that. If this were to happen in real life, I would be like, the world is ending. It's the apocalypse. Like, this is crazy.
You think the people of Tombstone would be leaving their town because they were assuming that God was coming to swallow up their town. And a detail that I love, and I didn't notice it till you and I watched the other night, there's this quick little shot of the Earp wives sitting in, I guess, an attic, and they're playing with tarot cards. I'm thinking, this is like a whole other movie, because they're like, I don't know what's going on out there. Let's summon the forces of darkness. They're just sitting around playing with tarot cards. I'm like, man, this is like a whole other movie here.
I think one of the wives is like, can we play an actual card game?
And just hold on a second. Let's find out what Fate Tales is. Yeah, it's nuts. Like, I wonder, like, man, like this would be like the crazy spinoff of like the Earp women, like kind of like the dark, crazy, Evil Dead adventures they go on when while the man folk are doing their thing.
Wow. Yeah. What are the women doing? No one cares, and no one bothers to find out. But you know what? I bet the women of this time were doing some crazy stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there's just nothing for the women of this movie to do. The actresses have so little. I mean, Dana Delaney is basically given the most to do, and it's barely anything. So I do love that there's this scene to indicate, oh, these are wild women. They're interesting. It's too bad that we spend maybe a total of 2 minutes of screen time with them throughout the course of this movie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, someone shoots Virgil.
Yeah.
During this crazy storm.
Yes, and yeah, the thunderclap is enough to mask the gun, and it really made me wonder, like, how do you time that exactly?
Yeah, I don't know, but then someone goes to like shoot the wives.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Then
and that should have been the first thing, like, we're never playing with tarot cards again.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, because then Virgil comes back to the bar where the other Earp brothers are, and his arm is all mangled.
Yeah.
And then they find out about the wives, and then some of the cowboys come up to the Earps, and they're like, we just found out about the wife thing. That we totally don't agree with that. We're coming to your side.
Yeah, and one of the cowboys is played by Michael Rooker, so it's like his little splinter gang that no longer is a part of the other guys. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was interesting. And I got to say, the scene with Sam Elliott being cared for in this version of surgery in this town, his wife is holding on to him, and he's, poor guy, is just like in the agony of his life, cut blood everywhere. One of the 2 scenes in this movie where characters have to deal with medieval surgery in this town. Very, very powerful stuff. Like, this is where the movie earns its R rating. It's brutal.
Oh, I mean, I think anything having to do with surgery or pulling teeth or gunshot wounds or gangrene back in the day.
Yeah.
Just sounds the worst.
Especially in this town, it's like, I mean, anesthetic. No, it's take a swig of whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Here, bite on this piece of wood while we saw off your, mangled arm. That
It's barely like what they have. It's barely like a step above the whole thing of like, doctor, I have a migraine. Well, hey, look, I'm just gonna drill this little hole in your head to let out all the evil spirits. You'll be fine. It's barely above that.
yeah,
That
time for a bleeding.
I got some snake oil to pour on your bleeding. Yeah.
Okay, so then after all that, Morgan gets shot.
Yes.
And we have to watch them try to pull a bullet out of him.
Yeah,
And
it's a
there's
harrowing
blood
scene.
everywhere.
Oh man, that's so tough. Yeah, Bill Paxton is man, so good in this scene. Yeah.
So
And he does not live.
right,
And,
he dies, and then now, okay, so this is what sends Wyatt Earp over the edge: is one dead brother, another with the loss of an arm, and he's like, I'm just gonna become a U.S. Marshal again.
Yeah.
And then Doc Holliday.
And I love what you pointed out too. It's like it doesn't take much to become deputized.
Oh my gosh, it doesn't. You don't have to know anything to become a U.S.
You don't
Marshal.
need to practice law. You don't need to go to any kind of like academy. No, it's like, do you know how to use a 6-shooter? You're a marshal.
Yeah. Well, now it does help that they knew Wyatt Earp had been a quote unquote lawman before, but other people get deputized. They don't have to take a quiz. They don't have to answer any questions. They don't have to know anything.
Are you a stone cold killer? Here's your badge.
Yeah. Yes. It's so crazy. So Doc says about Wyatt Earp, it's not revenge he's after. It's a reckoning.
Yeah, boy, does that sound like something no one would ever say in real life, but would definitely say in a movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you're like, okay, Doc Holliday, now I'm with you for this next part of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So now we just have a montage.
A killing montage.
A killing montage.
Yeah, there's a shot during this montage. It's just a lot of shots of Wyatt Earp walking into a room, shooting 3 people, and then leaving, or these guys on horseback, and of course you got the most beautiful sunsets in the world.
Well, and it's really easy to spot these cowboys because they got their red bandanas.
Red sashes, yeah. Yeah, good tip for a gang. Don't let your sashes being so prominent. That's
Right.
a good way to get shot.
Exactly.
But during the montage, there's a shot where Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday are on a horseback next to each other, and they're at full gallop. And at one point, Earp tosses his gun to Doc Holliday, who cocks it and fires it directly at the camera. And this apparently is something that Russell and Kilmer did. I didn't read up about it. I'm just watching the movie. I'm like, my gosh, that's awesome. Like these guys, I mean, like the thing is, I don't know when they filmed this movie that they thought they were making a classic, but like these 2 actors and so many of the other actors in this movie, I mean, they're really going for it. Mm-hmm. I really, whether it's Michael Biehn with his twirling the gun, and this little moment, it's like, wow, this is a throwaway moment, and it's this little piece of a montage, but like, yeah, these guys are really going for it.
And so some of the folklore around Wyatt Earp is that he never got shot. And there's a scene where they're kind of, everyone's kind of hiding in trees, and there's this like creek or whatever, and they're surrounded. I think like Wyatt Earp, he's just like, screw this. And he like gets up and he just like goes out into the open where he could totally be shot and just starts shooting.
Well, a word to the script writer. I mean, this is one of those scenes where they should have said, let's not we don't need to give Russell any lines. And instead, what they do is they have, I think I wrote it down right here. The line is, no.
Hey, what? No.
What?
No.
What? What are you doing?
No. No.
They really should have cut that. Just, he didn't need to say it.
And it's just really funny. So So then Doc Holliday, he's having a hard time
Yeah.
with his lungs.
Yeah.
And starts bleeding out of his mouth. And so they're like, we got to get him into bed. And they find a ranch with who's the owner of the ranch?
It's Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
I mean, of all the cameos in this movie, that's the one. It's like, wow, Charlton Heston is in this.
Yeah.
And you wonder, like, he should have been in that earlier scene where the townspeople are freaking out, like, you're not taking away my guns. And then, Charlton Heston could have stepped in and be like, from my cold, dead hands. That would have been perfect.
That would have been perfect. So they're kind of, holed up in this ranch, and he's like, you can stay here for a night and then you have to go. But Doc Holliday is not doing well. And
he asked Earp point blank, pun intended, he asked him, like, do you think you're up to taking on these guys, or you think you're up to taking on Johnny Ringo? And Earp's like, no. And you could see how that concerns Holiday, and it's actually a bit of foreshadowing. And
well, Earp says, do you think I can beat him?
Yeah.
And Doc says no.
Yeah, that's right, you're right.
Yeah. And so then Doc Holliday says, like, I wonder what it would be like to wear a badge. And so Wyatt Earp leaves the badge with him.
Yeah.
And then it's established that the bad guy was like, meet me, at this place.
At a certain part.
At this time. And so Wyatt Earp knows he has to go to, like, either kill or be killed.
Mano a mano, high noon. Yep.
Yeah. And so the bad guy gets there. And who is there?
It's a great reveal, and it even surprised me watching it the other night.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that. Where suddenly it's Doc Holliday materializes out of the shadows, goes, I'm your Huckleberry. Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, he says the line again, and they do their whole, like, I don't know what
the twitchy finger, the itchy trigger finger.
Yeah.
And they kind of dance around
where
each
it's
other.
like, who's gonna draw first and kill the other person?
As the movie establishes, these two are the equal of one another. So it's a great bit, and Michael Biehn and Val Kilmer are really playing it so well. It's great. It's so exciting.
Yeah, and Doc kills him,
Of course.
and I was like,
And then Wyatt Earp shows up what feels like minutes later. Like, how long did it take him to get to that hill? How the heck could Doc Holliday with tuberculosis on horseback beat him?
because then he goes, I wasn't as sick as I said I was. Like, what? You were bleeding out of your mouth.
But I'm thinking, like, did you take a train to get there? Because, man, like, you really beat Wyatt Earp to the site of this killing.
Yeah. And Wyatt is just like, wait, what just happened here? And then he shows him the badge. He's like, I did it legally. Like, what? What? You weren't technically deputized, Doc Holliday.
Well, in this world, I mean, it's like, can you hold a badge? You're a deputy. You've been deputized.
Oh my gosh. So, all right. I mean,
The movie wraps itself up at this point.
the movie's kind of wrapping up, but then we kind of move on to Doc's in a sanatorium in, like, Glenwood Springs, Colorado.
Yeah,
which,
we've been there.
by the way, not a bad place to, like, live your last days. Glenwood Springs is beautiful.
It is beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know, a sanatorium?
Yeah, it's the thing.
It's like,
it's not really the happiest place.
is that like the name that they just give hospitals, or is that literally where, like, you go when you're a little cuckoo?
It looks like he's in a nice joint. I don't know the reality of where he was when he passed away, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So Wyatt goes to visit him, and they kind of have their last moments, and Doc tells him, like, go find your actress and live your life and get room service and all that stuff. And then Wyatt hands him a little book he wrote, like,
Yes.
called My Friend Doc Holliday.
By Wyatt Earp, yeah.
And it's so sweet. And the most tragic thing is Doc dies. He reads the cover and then he dies. And that's
Yeah.
it.
This is a beautiful scene because he says, if you were ever my friend, you're going to leave right now. If you were ever my friend, you will just walk out of here right now. He does not want him to see him in this state, does not want to see him die, does not want his pity. He refuses. It is beautiful. And the way Russell plays it, I think he says, thank you for always being there. And that's their parting words. It's beautiful. It is fantastic, this scene. Love it. And the movie was very wise to invest time for these scenes. There should be a lot less. There should be more Jason Priestley and Billy Zane.
Oh my gosh.
Seriously. But there should especially be none of those stupid Dana Delaney, Kurt Russell scenes. But the movie needed more Priestley and Zane and lots more of, well, I think there's enough actually of Russell and Kilmer. I think these scenes are fantastic and they're playing it great. Weird pairing. Who would have thought these two would be so good together? But they are. I mean, they come from very different schools of acting. I mean, when Kilmer was a young man, he was playing Hamlet, and when Kurt Russell was a young man, he was in Disney movies. I mean, they could not be more different as actors, but man, they gel in this movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then at the very end,
the ending the movie does not need.
We have Kurt and Josephine. In Denver going to a play?
Yeah, at the end of her performance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then dancing in the snow.
Oh,
and it's
gosh,
just
scene.
kind of like,
oh, it's so corny. It's like, this was such a gritty movie 15 minutes ago, and then it gets all soft and gooey on us. The thing I like is Robert Mitchum's narration comes back, and he talks about, he basically kind of tells us what happened to the characters after the movie, and he speaks about how when Wyatt Earp passed away, Tom Mix, who he helped, Tom Mix, of course, the great silent actor, the cowboy actor, who Earp actually worked for Mix at the studio and gave him advice about how to play a great lawman. And the last line in the movie is that Tom Mix wept at Wyatt Earp's funeral. And it's cool. I mean, that's always been such a fascinating part of history. I mean, that would be like, that'd be like learning, about a cop who, taught Bruce Willis to play John McClane. It's like, well, who is that person? And there's a movie about this, by the way, called Sunsets. I like the film a lot. It's not a beloved film. Blake Edwards did it. James Garner plays Wyatt Earp. Bruce Willis plays Tom Mix, and it's about that. And it's really not a comedy. It's about how this real lawman is teaching this Hollywood movie star to be an authentic cowboy. Very good film. I don't know. I don't think people are going to like it as much as Tombstone, but nevertheless, I like that the film touches upon this idea that Earp's entire life, in addition to being the thing of legend, really did invite itself to his own myth making when he assisted this movie star in creating the very legends that Earp himself lived.
He's like, ooh, I'm going to make myself even more awesome.
Yeah, and the fact that Earp, in the end of his life was attached to this. I mean, his life is... I mean, there's still echoes of him. I mean, not only are so many of these lawman characters based on Wyatt Earp, even whether they say it or not. James Stewart, the last movie James Stewart ever did was An American Tail, Fievel Goes West. And in that movie, he plays a lawman, and the lawman's name is Wiley Burp. Not really the best trivia, but nevertheless, my point is that, Wyatt Earp is like, he's such the thing of movies. It is kind of astonishing to think this was a real guy.
Well, and it's also established, because I was thinking, well, what happened to his wife? Shortly after leaving Tombstone with the other wives and the Virgil, she dies of a drug overdose. So there you go.
That's in the Kasdan movie. That's in the 1994 movie, Wyatt Earp. That movie dotes on so many details. And it keeps going long after the gunfight at OK Corral. And that was something that really bothered me about it, because it just felt like this movie just does not want to end. It's not that a story about Earp and Holiday needs to end with gunfight at OK Corral, but obviously that's such a that's such the thing of mythos with these guys. I think this movie gets away with it, but the fact that Wyatt Earp is 3 hours and that film just covers so much ground. It's the movie just exhausts you by the end of it. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing about that movie, I'm told that it was 3 hours when I saw it in the theater. Apparently there's a 4-hour cut on Laserdisc. I've heard the 4-hour cut is preferable. I'm not watching the 4-hour cut of that movie. I'm not going back to that movie.
I'm not even watching the 3-hour cut.
I'll see Tombstone again. I'm not watching the 4-hour Wyatt Earp.
So that's it. That's the whole thing. And I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you did. Yeah, I like this film a lot. It came out at a very interesting time. The Western had been dead for a while. I mean, if you don't count Young Guns and Young Guns 2, which were really more, teen action movies, respectfully. And I like those movies, but I don't know if we call them great Westerns. The second one I would, not so much the first one. But Tombstone came out a year after Unforgiven. Came the year after. And it was a very big deal, Unforgiven. That movie really brought Westerns back to prominence. They started making more Westerns. People were talking about it. I mean, Westerns were really a dead genre for a while, except for, a few loose movies made by Clint Eastwood. So Unforgiven brought it back, and Tombstone, coming a year later, really put forth that, there's a market for this. People want to see these movies. They have to be done right. And it was interesting that, Wyatt Earp, again, the bigger film, the movie that was hyped a lot more and had so much more star power, and the bigger film, it just totally bombed at the box office, whereas Tombstone was this surprise hit. I really dig this film. Every time I see it, I do think this film clearly was longer. I would like to see a longer cut, because I wonder if it would really just set things up better. Because I think it works having Earp come to town on a train and, establish, the wedding massacre at the beginning. I think for the most part, the characters are established well. But you're absolutely right. Like, the movie is really depending on you being at least somewhat familiar with this legend. More so than just like meeting the characters as you would
normally. It would have
normally.
helped to have like a Star Wars crawl at the beginning.
Sure.
Instead of the black and white kind of.
It's not enough, is it?
Yeah, the old timey movie. It just made me go, wait, what? Where are we? What's happening?
I think it establishes mood more than it does character.
Yeah. So it would have helped to just have maybe a couple lines of like who everyone is. It's just mostly Wyatt Earp and maybe Doc Holliday. And then I think I would have like jumped right in, no problem.
Yeah.
But I spent too much of like the first maybe 15 minutes going, what?
Yeah, there's too many interesting characters who kind of come to the forefront and they vanish. It's established that Stephen Lang is playing a character who would later die after all the events of this movie.
And you know what? When there's too many like name movie stars, I feel like it's more confusing.
It's distracting.
It's distracting because then you think, oh, this is somebody I need to like know who they are. But then they're in this movie for like 5 minutes or less.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. This is just a movie star movie.
Right. But I'll tell you, like, the reason I love this movie, and it hit me the other night too, watching it, this movie is unpretentious. It is not full of itself. It's not a movie where the director overdid it. It's very straightforward. At times, it almost feels like a B film in the way that it's made. It's not really flashy. I mean, there's a few uses of slow motion. The one that really amused me is after the cowboys have been killed, and it's that montage of Wyatt Earp and everybody going around. And there's a shot where on horseback, while they're at full gallop, Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp shake hands while they're on horses. Like, that's pretty cool. But for the most part, like, this movie isn't showy, other than the beautiful sunsets. It's really just totally straightforward. Like, it feels like a B film, and I think that's one of the things that's so great about it. It doesn't have the grandeur. I'm sure the filmmakers were thinking like this could be like John Ford, but no, it really isn't. I mean, this feels like a small film, and I think that's what's so great about it, because it is really lean. At times, it's really mean. It's incredibly exciting. And for those reasons, I don't know if I'd say it's one of the greatest Westerns ever made. I don't know if I'd put it quite in that high caliber, but I get it when people tell me they love it. And I love this film. For me, it's a 3.5-star movie.
Would you change the ending?
I would want a postscript where the Earp girls are using their tarot cards and they're like, who would they bring back? I think you see them like trying to bring back their husbands who are gone.
Oh. No.
So I want like a Tombstone inspired. I mean, even that's a great title for a horror film, right? So called The Ghosts of Tombstone.
Oh, The Ghosts of Tombstone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I want my horror movie spinoff with my Earp girls in the attic with the one going, "You girls go ahead with your cards. I have my opium." Yeah, I think that'd be a wild film. That's the movie I want. No, otherwise, no. I think it's a great film. At times, for the most part, I think it's really good, but at times, I think it's superb.
Okay, how about an annoying ending where instead of Josephine and Wyatt like dancing in the snow, they're just like in their hotel room, like in their bed, and they're like, "So should we order room service?" Credits.
I would welcome that, except instead of credits, knock on the door, room service, the tray comes over, and it's Stephen Lang, and he shoots her. How about your room service, Wyatt Earp? I got you. And then end credits.
Man, you are all about the revenge.
Well, it's Tombstone, Jules. It's a Western.
All right.
And Dana Delaney, you are an excellent actress. You are. But Westerns are just not your thing.
All right. I would give it 3.5 stars too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, well, we like this one. I'm glad. You'd never seen it before. I definitely wanted it. I thought, oh, we should see a Western. And this is, I think, a fun one.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it. That is our discussion on Tombstone.
Grab your dog, saddle up your horses, and don't look at me funny. Well, you know what's coming to you. Hell is coming to you. Good night, everybody.